California looks like one state, but stand anywhere from the frozen granite peaks of the Sierra Nevada to the cracked salt flats of Death Valley, and it feels like 10 different planets forced inside a single border. This is the most geologically violent, ecologically extreme, economically powerful piece of land in the Western Hemisphere. A place where the ground moves beneath your feet, where ancient seas left their bones in desert rock, and where a single river system feeds 40 million people hanging on by a thread. Most people think they know California. They don't. Because the real story isn't the one on the surface. It's what's underneath it. And once you see it, nothing looks the same. California sits on a collision, not a metaphor. A literal, ongoing, grinding collision between two of the largest tectonic plates on Earth. The Pacific Plate crawls northwest. The North American Plate resists. And caught in the middle, California tears itself apart in slow motion. The San Andreas Fault runs nearly 900 miles through the state, slicing from the Salton Sea in the south to Cape Mendocino in the north. In some places, you can stand with 1 foot on each plate. The ground on your left is slowly moving toward Alaska. The ground on your right is staying put. That gap, that restless seam, is why California exists at all. The mountains, the valleys, the very shape of the coastline, all trace back to this unresolved argument between two plates that will never settle their differences. In 1906, San Francisco found out what that argument sounds like up close. The earthquake lasted less than a minute. The fires that followed burned for 3 days. 3,000 people died. 28,000 buildings fell. A city of 300,000 people was effectively erased and rebuilt from ash. But here is what most people miss. The 1906 quake was not the exception. It was the reminder. The San Andreas does not sleep between disasters, it creeps. In Hollister, a town in central California, the fault moves so consistently that sidewalks slowly buckle and buildings drift off their foundations over decades. The southern segment has not released its stored energy since 1857. Every year it waits, that energy grows. California did not just inherit a volatile foundation. It built its entire civilization on top of one. If you want to keep learning the hidden stories behind the places that shaped America, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us which state you think we should cover next. But the geology here didn't just threaten, it created. Roughly 25 million years ago, volcanic heat and tectonic pressure began pushing up a granite spine along the eastern edge of the state. That spine became the Sierra Nevada, a wall of mountains stretching 400 miles with peaks climbing above 14,000 feet, capturing nearly every drop of moisture carried in from the Pacific. When spring arrives, that snowpack melts slowly, feeding rivers that drain into the Central Valley below. The Sacramento and San Joaquin rivers collect that water, threading it south through one of the most engineered landscapes on Earth. Nearly every almond, every head of lettuce, every tomato grown in California's Central Valley exists because the Sierra Nevada catches snow and releases it on a schedule that farmers, cities, and aqueducts have spent a century learning to intercept. The mountains don't just sit there looking dramatic. They are the engine of the entire state's food supply. The Central Valley itself is a story few people fully grasp. It is 450 miles long and about 50 miles wide in places. It is so flat that early surveyors described it as the floor of a vanished sea, which is almost exactly what it was. Millions of years ago, a shallow inland ocean covered this basin. When it retreated, it left behind sediments thousands of feet deep, some of the most fertile soil on the planet. Today, the Central Valley produces more than half of America's fruits, nuts, and vegetables. But that fertility came with a hidden cost. The same underground aquifer has been pumped so aggressively that the valley floor is physically sinking. In some areas near Fresno, the land has dropped more than 30 feet since the 1920s. Canals crack, roads buckle. The Central Valley is feeding the world while slowly eating itself alive. The water story in California runs deeper than most people realize. In 1913, a 230-mile aqueduct opened, pulling water from the Owens Valley all the way to Los Angeles. The city bought up the land and water rights quietly and systematically, and then turned off the taps. Owens Lake dried to a cracked white flat. The dust it kicks up became one of the worst sources of particulate air pollution in the country. Los Angeles built itself into the second largest city in America on water it took from somewhere else. Then it needed more. The Colorado River Compact of 1922 divided the river among 7 western states. Lake Mead has dropped so far that boat ramps built decades ago now sit hundreds of feet above the waterline. The arithmetic of California's thirst and the West's water supply has never added up, and every dry year, the gap widens. If this is the kind of story that makes you see places differently, subscribe so you never miss one. And let us know in the comments what surprises you most about California. California's coastline runs 840 miles, shaped by the same tectonic restlessness that built the mountains inland. Redwood forests press close to the northern cliffs, their roots gripping bluffs above the surf. These trees, some of them 2,000 years old, grow only here, dependent on summer fog drifting in from the cold California current. Further south, the coastline softens, and one of the most densely developed shorelines in the world begins to show its vulnerability. Every winter, storms chew at the bluffs above Malibu and Pacific Palisades. Houses slide, roads crumble. The cliffs retreat several feet every decade, and the homes perched on them are worth millions of dollars, sitting on ground that is actively falling into the sea. In the far south, Death Valley holds the record for the hottest temperature ever reliably recorded on Earth. 130 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer of 2021. The valley floor sits 282 feet below sea level, the lowest point in North America. Yet less than 100 miles away, Mount Whitney rises to 14,500 feet, the highest point in the contiguous United States. No other place on the continent holds that kind of vertical drama inside a single afternoon's drive. Death Valley averages less than 2 inches of rain per year. And yet, after rare winter storms, the desert floor erupts. Wildflowers cover acres of ground that looked like bare rock the week before. Seeds that waited years, sometimes decades, finally crack open all at once. The desert does not fail. It just operates on a different schedule than everything around it. The gold rush of 1848 didn't just bring people. It brought the largest peacetime migration in American history in a matter of months. The population of California exploded from roughly 14,000 non-indigenous people to more than 300,000 in under 5 years. The rivers of the Sierra Nevada foothills were redirected, blasted, and dismantled by hydraulic mining operations that moved more earth than the construction of the Panama Canal. The salmon runs that indigenous communities had relied on for thousands of years collapsed under millions of tons of mining debris. The gold rush didn't just extract wealth from California, it demonstrated the scale at which the state's resources could be consumed when ambition had no limits. California is not a finished story. The fires that now burn through the state every autumn are larger, faster, and more destructive than at any point in recorded history. The same Mediterranean climate that made the state feel like paradise also means vegetation that spends half the year waiting to burn. The atmospheric rivers that bring winter rain can drop a year's worth of precipitation in a week, triggering debris flows that bury roads and neighborhoods in hours. The fault lines remain loaded, the aquifers keep dropping, the coastline keeps retreating. And 40 million people keep building, farming, and living on ground that has never been stable, in a climate that has never been predictable, in a state that has always operated just slightly beyond the edge of what the land can sustain. That tension between what California promises and what its geology allows is the oldest story this place tells. And it is nowhere close to finished. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. To help us keep the videos coming your way, please like and subscribe.